back to class, everybody. Today is Sunday, September the 13th. It's the start of the NFL season, the regular NFL season. I'm excited for that. But I wanted to get this video posted and available to you. Make sure you pay particular attention to this video because I'm going to make a few slight modifications on what we will be doing this week. So let's jump directly into class sessions and see what's there. We are in session 4 of English 111. And in this week, you'll be turning in the final version of your first writing project. For learning activities, we will be looking at Chapter 5, Understanding Analytical Writing. There are some practice Ivy Tilt, which are library tutorials. We are finishing up summary and response and peer response feedback. There's not a great deal due this week under assignment and assessments. We are finishing up the discussion board for sessions 3 and 4, posting to responses to the critical rereading. You have to take the Ivy Tilt exercise, which is a short multiple choice quiz, and most importantly, you're turning in your final draft of Writing Project 1, and you'll be turning it in 2 places, and I'll show you where those are. Speaking of Writing Project 1, now that I've read everyone's drafts of the first writing project, I can't stress 2 things enough. Number 1, when I read your final version, the first thing I do is I hit the F7 key. Now, why F7? Because that's both spelling and grammar check. And some of the initial drafts that I read had some simple spelling and grammatical errors in them. If you use the F7 key, you'll catch those before you ever turn it into me. And knowing that when I read your final version, the first thing I do is hit the F7 key, if you do it before I even see it, you're going to catch all those. And when I hit the F7 key and it comes back, there are no mistakes found. I like your paper already. So make sure you use that. And also, I want to point in again, tutor.com. It's a free service to you that will get you feedback on anything that you've written. And they turn it in a very short period of time, 24 hours, no more. It's free, and it's another person reading your writing. When I was a graduate student finishing up my master's in English, I thought I was a pretty good writer already. But before I ever turned in one of my papers, I would have it read by 3, 4, 5 people. As a beginning academic writer, I can't stress enough how important it is that you have other people read your work. Because let's face it, all of us write the way we think. And when we reread it, we're kind of blind to the mistakes that anyone else can easily identify. That's just human nature. So make sure anytime you're turning in a writing project in this class or any other, have as many people as possible read it for you. It's going to make you a better writer. There, I got off my soapbox. Let's take a look at the learning activities. And as I mentioned, there's not too many of them because we want to have you spending as much time as possible polishing that final draft so it's as good as it can possibly be. Here is your textbook. Of course, you only have 1 chapter to read, and it's not too long, pages 115 to 140. Here are the library tutorials, the Ivy Tilt tutorials. As I mentioned before, you do have to take a short quiz over this. If you go through these, there are 6 of them, and they're not very long, you're going to do great on the quiz. And in this class, I think it's important that you get as many of the easy points like quizzes and discussion boards as possible. So if you turn in an essay at some point that maybe isn't your best and you don't get a very good grade on it, you can make up the points that you lost on that essay by getting really good scores on all of these quizzes. So take all of these, practice through them, and then after you practice these, go ahead and jump straight into the quiz while everything is still fresh in your mind. You're going to do well. Writing Project 1, Summary and Response. Let's open this up and take a look. Now, when you started your draft of Writing Project 1, of course, you were only following steps 1 through 6. Now, we're going to follow steps 7 through 10. And here's where I'm going to make one small change. Students will conduct peer response in class session 3. Well, you've already done that, or most of you have finished it as of this recording. You're going to use that feedback that you got to work on your final draft. Here's the change. Along with your final draft, it says you will submit a cover letter explaining the feedback that you received, etc., etc. For this writing project, I'm going to require that you turn in the situational analysis, and some folks in the class didn't include that with their first draft. That's okay. I didn't get a chance to give you feedback, but when you turn in the final version, you have to include the situational analysis. And if you're unfamiliar with that, you can go back to class session 3 and it's covered there. Of course, you're going to turn in your final draft as well, and you're going to turn that into 2 places, but I'm not at this time going to require that you submit the cover letter. If I see a cover letter from you, I'm going to know you didn't watch this video. Strengthen your voice. Of course, you're going to make changes based on the feedback you got from me and from the other people in the course, but you're not going to include the cover letter. Step 10, make sure you find errors in grammar, punctuation, and spelling and correct them. Of course, you're going to do that using F7, but you're also going to do that once you have a final draft written. Before you turn it in, give it to somebody else, let them read it. Of course, in this course, we're only using MLA style, and then you're going to turn in your situational analysis and your final draft in 2 places, and I'll show you where those are. So that's it for the instructions. Let's go back into the class session folder. I'm not going to open this link up, but it says Writing Project 1 Peer Response Feedback. This is where other people commented on your draft. Of course, you're going to want to read the comments that were made about your draft, review those, in order to get your draft as good as possible. Sorry, it's early. I'm getting a little tongue-tied. My apologies. Now let's go into assignments and assessments. And this is important because I'm going to show you where you turn in your final paper. But before we get to that, let's look at Session 3 and Session 4 discussion. This is over the critical rereading, where you did a second read and a second analysis on the article that you chose. And there's only a few of these in as of this point in time on Sunday. Of course, our deadline hasn't yet come, and I hope the rest of these will get in. But you're going to want to pick 2 authored by someone other than you and give them response. And I won't open these up now, but just show you that's where they are. Here is the Ivy Tilt exercise. Again, take the tutorials first. After you've completed those, they're not very long. Jump directly into this. It's not very long. Notice you have a time limit of 10 minutes. There's only 10 questions and they're multiple choice. But you can only do it once, so make sure you take the tutorials first, then jump directly into this, and you'll do great. It's pretty simple. And here is where you turn in your final version of Writing Project 1. And the deadline for that will be Sunday, September 20th at 11:55 p.m. So you have a week to finalize this. This is where you're going to submit it first, and this is the one that comes to me. This is where I will see it. Notice there are 85 points possible. I also want to mention that for the draft, the one you turned in last week, there were only 15 points possible. And if you turned it in on time, I gave you all the points because it's more important for me that I give you feedback over your draft. I know I can be fairly critical about your drafts, and I hope no one takes that personally, but it's because I want to point out as many mistakes or things that need attention as possible so your final version is as good as it can be. So I hammered on some of you, but that's because I want to make sure that you get your final version really good. And I will do that over every draft that you turn in because the drafts are worth so little points. It's more important, I think, that you get the feedback. When you are ready, you are going to simply click on Browse My Computer, find your final version, and make sure, because this has happened in this class in previous semesters, that you're turning in the right final version. Every once in a while, I'll see a version from somebody that I can tell clearly is an earlier version that they were still working on. Make sure you get the right one. But click Browse My Computer, attach it, whether it's on a flash drive, in your Documents folder, on your desktop, and submit it that way. Under Comments, you don't have to make any. If you want to say, "Hi Mark, here it is," I guess that's fine. But you're not required to add anything under Comments. But what I want to make sure you never do is never ever copy and paste and put your essay here in the comments section. It has to be attached as a file. So that's where you turn it in the first place. Now let's look at the second. And that is here. You're going to turn in exactly the same file, your final version, into this second place as well as the first. And this is for originality checking. And this tells me if there's any part of your essay that is unoriginal to you. Now, I do not expect that you're ever going to turn in an essay that is 100% you, because you're going to include quotations and the thoughts of other people. That's fine. What I do want to make sure is anytime when I read that report that if I see something that is not original to you, that you tell me where you got it. Either put it in quotation marks or simply allude to who the speaker might have been. If I see that, then everything's great. All right, that's it for assignments and assessments for session 4. Again, finish off the discussion board. Take the Ivy-tailed exercise after you do the tutorials. And when you're ready and your final version is good to go and it's been read by someone else other than you, and by the way, I recommend that someone else that's reading your work is not a parent or a husband or a wife, somebody that's not a direct relative to you, because they're used to listening to how you speak and they may not pick up on some of the mistakes that you make. Give it to a friend, give it to a coworker, give it to another instructor, anyone else who's not directly related to you, and they will help you more than you'll ever know. Again, you're going to turn it in 2 places. This one comes to me, and this one is the originality checker. So just to repeat, for your final version, I want to see a situational analysis, and I want to see your final draft. You do not need the cover letter. And your deadline to turn that in is Sunday, September 20th at 11:55 p.m. I think that finishes it off for session 4. Again, only 1 chapter to read, 1 short quiz. I want to see you spending most of your time making that final draft as good as it can be. As always, reach out to me anytime. I've been chatting with a lot of people in this course, but I haven't heard from everybody yet. It's not necessary that you must get in contact with me, but I want you to know that I'm here and available to answer questions, make comments as things go along. I've offered this to some of the students in the course, and I'll offer it to everyone. If you're working on a draft and you're just not sure if it's going the right direction, it's absolutely fine that you can send it to me as you're working on it and get some feedback from me. I'll return it to you, make some suggestions, and then you can continue to work on it. That's absolutely fine. My text number is 812-498-4200. My email address is mstenger and the number 1 at ivytech.edu. If you want to give me a call, it's toll free, 800-416-1747. Make sure you're formatting your paper to MLA standards. A couple of folks missed that on the drafts. That's okay, but you have to make sure you get it right on the final version. Remember, you always start with your name, double space my name, double space ENG111, double space the date. And on the date, you're not putting down the date you started working on it or the date you finished it. You're putting in the due date. So on every final version of the paper that I see, the date should read 20 September 2015, not September 20th, 20 September 2015. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy watching football games. Can't wait to read your drafts. Reach out to me if you need me. Have a good week, everyone.